Well. In theory, I'm once again live on the interwebs. And yeah, that is truly what is happening. So hopefully it's working. I sporadically decided to do one of these livey things, and I'm just hoping it's working. Um, if it is, let me know. Throw something in the commentary. Not a great plan. I have a beer that I'm going to crack open. I got about an hour before I sit down and do some video editing and hopefully actually have some reviews ready in the not too distant future. I did play with some swords today. I did play with some Beiser, formerly Beiser, Cloudhammer. Tough to get it out of your mind once you have an association with the name. But I played with Cloudhammer Steelworks. I played with the S5 Katana. Did some quasi-abusive things. Just took it to some, at this point, frozen branches. And yeah, that's what I did. And then I tested a Yes Katana as well, just a bit. So anyway, that is all I've done. I did no other things. I did practice some EI. Oh, and I got some other swords from Dark Sword Armory. There's lots of sword things that have happened. But yes, I have not collected my thoughts. That's the downside of doing a random ramble stream is I didn't really plan anything. And so when I turn on the camera, I sound a bit like a doofus, but it's worked in the past. So why not give it a go again? Eighth Sinner, hello. Abdallah, hello. Poppy Seku Flavis. Chris, hello. The one I showed yesterday. Yes, that was a fun one. So the one from yesterday was something that I've had for a minute. Well, I guess you watched the video on it, so you already know what it is. But it's fun when a plan comes together, right? So I've not really very often taken the pieces and bits and bobs that I have and customized them to do anything unique, special, or good. And I also thought I didn't have that red scabbard anymore, but I guess it sat in a corner. And I found it, so that was good. The thing came together well, though. It's actually kind of a fun training piece. It's a little bit longer too, so it's a nice find to have something that I actually enjoy using. That is in a theme that I enjoy, especially with like Mitsudome Manuki. It's rare that it's all in a quasi Mitsudome kind of theme. Anyway, I'm very happy with it. It came together really well, and I haven't trained with it much since, just because I'm behind. So I have swords from Dragon Sword, Yes Katana, Romance of Men, Cloudhammer Steelworks, all like waiting for me to validate. And I think there's some more in there as well, and a few folks that were going to send me some other stuff. So I'm just behind, and yeah. So I haven't gotten a chance to play with that one too much, but I did enjoy putting it together. It was therapeutic to have something that came out that way. I also forget that I'm specifically streaming with StreamYard because I can click on comments. So as I'm babbling about something, like it's at least transparent to the people about what I'm talking about, I will try to keep doing that. Have you noticed a Saya moth responding different during cold weather, especially practicing EI? Not specifically. Targets react differently. Like pool noodles are generally a little bit easier to cut. They get bit into a little bit easier, I would say. But I don't notice the mouth of the Saya doing much different. I can't remember. I think cold constricts or expands. I can't remember which one it does. I haven't found that swords that were at least reasonably comfortable to use became much tighter and much looser. But as I'm practicing in cold weather, usually the sword like acclimates. I don't know if like everything shrinks or expands so that it doesn't change in a terribly noticeable way. It is something I try to keep in mind, though, if I'm practicing EI. Like, I was outside in a jacket, not in a hakama, practicing with the yes katana. And it is, as I'm evaluating it, I'm thinking, like, is it really fair for me to compare this to other swords that I've played with in the summer when I'm actually in the appropriate attire? How much of this is transferable? How much of my bad experience that I'm having right now is related to the sword versus the weather versus my ability? But to answer your question more directly, no, I don't specifically notice a huge amount, other than all of the other things combined in cold weather. When I'm cold, it's harder to do EI. You're less comfortable. Generally it's cold enough to like freeze. So I'm focused on slipping and stuff like that. But as I think about the saya and the mouth of the saya, it's the habaki going into it. And is it too tight or too loose, or does it have some sort of adverse effect? And generally speaking, not so much. I imagine it does have like a technical effect, but I don't generally notice that part of it specifically. I think the peeps with less money like me are more willing to dress up semi-standard swords. That's a fair point. If you have some artistic skill, a sinner, then there's one capability to dress up a sword with different suba or match a different saya. I'm just very lucky to have different parts around, right? So that particular sword was a little bit longer, and that Ryujin saya, even though I don't recall the Ryujin blade being all that long, the saya was long enough to fit it, but many of the other saya that I tried did not. Suba, I think you could probably get to work, and if you had an extra seppa around, or something to add thickness or some file sets, you could add that pretty easily. But extra saya are a little bit on the risky side. Suba are a little less so. You can get those to fit with some tools and know-how. But yeah, I agree. I also have been tempted to try. The gripes that I have about like detail on fittings, I've kind of wondered if I tried my hand at engraving stuff. I've seen people do it online. I have a Dremel, or files. I wonder if I went slow, if I would be able to like more crisply lay out some of the details in some of the metal fittings on pieces that I enjoy to kind of enhance the look a little bit. Or if I took a wire brush and changed around the look of some of the fittings, like what would happen. I haven't done that myself, but I've wondered about it. I think if you have capability, then there's certainly options open to you. Do you plan to buy a high-end Zisei katana? I do not. Most of my high-end katana purchases at the moment are reserved for the projects that I have got myself into. So I recently purchased a Bob Ignatz Wakizashi, another Howard Clark L6 bear blade on top of the L6 bear blade I already have. So I have two L6 blades from Howard to finish. And I just also bought, I don't have them yet, but theoretically they will arrive. I purchased a bear bladed Tanto from Anthony DiCristofano, which, well, not from him directly. He doesn't make stuff anymore, but a Tanto he had made some time ago, which is really pretty. And I have to finish that, as well as two Bob Ignatz katana. So I am way far in the hole on projects. I have no idea when they're going to get done. On top of that, I have the My Little Pony thing going on. So I don't plan on doing any high-end purchases from Zisei or Motohara or really anyone else. Also, I have all the things I need realistically, right? So I'm really behind on review samples and things like that, things that I'm interested in collecting and like that keep my YouTube hobby going. But I also have like the training tools that I need. I have two pieces from Evolution Blades or Motohara pieces. I've talked about them in reviews in the past, and those do everything I need them to do from a training perspective and a cutting perspective for martial arts stuff. And I have Iaito that I like using, so I don't have an incentive, not just Zisei, but I don't have an incentive to buy like another production training tool for me personally. I've kind of exhausted the search and found things that I like. Not to say I don't buy them, but what I'm on the lookout more is just basically stuff that I can pick up secondhand for a good deal. And at the moment, there's nothing on the market that's suiting my fancy. but not because they're bad is the point. I'm not trying to say like I'd avoid them or PU or something like that. If I was in the market for something they had, they'd certainly be a contender for something for me to check out, but I just don't need anything at the moment. Hello from Minnesota. Yes, Katana, do the measure Moonmachi to the Suba? I don't know. I haven't actually taken great measurements of the blade yet. I did. Honestly, the Yes Katana review is I'm not doing a very good job at it. So, generally speaking, I try to practice EI with it before I do anything. Measurements, sometimes I'll take them before, sometimes I'll take them after, but I try to. I'm finding better if I take measurements after, so that I can develop a thought process. If I measure a thing, then I kind of know what to expect from it, and every now and again something doesn't flow in alignment with its measurements so much. In this case, with I'm letting you peer behind the curtain on my very scientific process that I have none, and it changes around and isn't necessarily fair. But the Yes Katana, I'm doing a little bit differently. I brought it out to do some cutting with right away, and one of the first things I cut with it was a steel can, a shaving cream can, right? And it made for a fun video that I put out, but it wasn't really fair to do that with the sword at first. And I've also only practiced EI with it in like street clothes and not in like a dojo environment while I've been warm. So that is not good on me as a reviewer. But anyway, I can't answer. That's not the question that you asked, but it is something I rambled about anyway. I don't know. I have to check the measurements. I can say I'm not one of the swords that they sent me. I asked for. They asked, what do you want? I recommended two things, one that was kind of basic and one that was a little bit more elaborate of a Tachi kind of looking thing. It's in like a copper saya. It's got metal work and stuff on the hilt and scabbard and whatnot. But I asked for it because the one on their website had a swirly midstone on it. So go figure, that's what I would really go after. And the one that I got didn't have that design. So I don't know if what's on their site versus what you get is very accurate given that experience of mine. But I haven't checked. I certainly will before the review. Can you do a real review of a Citadel katana if you still have it? I still have it, but I have a different bamboo katana. So the Citadel that I have left is the Citadel bamboo, and but I've already reviewed one like it, and so I suppose it'd be fair to kind of do a follow-up with another example. But it's a different bamboo, one that I bought secondhand. I've used it to cut, and I used it to train quite a bit prior to getting the Motohara pieces, which I tend to prefer. But I do still have it. I've already reviewed the Lotus and the bamboo. I think I do a little bit better job now. In fairness, it's been a few years since I reviewed either of them. Would there be something valuable about doing it again? Sorry, I'm snotty. I was outside, and so now I'm streaming my snotty face as I'm congested and whatnot. Have you seen I have not seen personally a review, a katana from Rado Sword, but I think he does really, really amazing work. I've seen photos, and I've seen other people review his work, and I think it looks fantastic. So, and I think his prices are also pretty modest. I did have him design a set of fittings, which I may reach out now that I have so many projects and have him make. But I haven't commissioned a sword from him. I haven't done anything with him yet, and I haven't gotten a chance to like see his stuff. And it doesn't come up secondhand very often. So and when one did, it didn't come up at a price that I could pay, or at least I couldn't justify it at the time. So I haven't gotten a chance to see his work. But if you were thinking about doing work, from my understanding, people have been very happy with his services, and that also is I feel like a kind of underrated aspect. People just expect craftsmen to be excellent businessmen, and often I've found that that's not the case. I'm very blessed to have the Mystery Man in Black and Josiah Boomershine and people that I work with when I find blades that I want to do projects on. But not every craftsman is a very fantastic businessman, and often, in my experience in working with them directly, I've had a number of times where people have exceeded the deadlines or kind of the agreed upon time to do things. And I become more and more of a stickler for that as I get older. There are other very notable smiths that do wonderful jobs on the swords themselves, but are not great at actually getting them to you on time, and it can leave you worried and frustrated. I have not heard that that's the case with Rado swords, or Radovan, I believe is his name. I believe he, from at least the experiences that I've heard about, have been generally positive. And so doing really, really great work with shape, making cool swords, having kind of an artistic flair where you can pick apart his swords and say they're made by him, and doing it in a way that like doesn't give you anxiety throughout the process is very compelling stuff. So I don't have any hands-on experience to recommend him, but the photos make me very curious. And if I were to commission a sword today, I would certainly consider him. Hello, Eric. I'm glad you could be here for the rambles. Review of the Citadel Ocean Katana. I don't have the Ocean anymore to do. It was very similar to the bamboo, though, with different hilt fittings and stuff like that. So honestly, though, I don't, as I ponder it a little bit more, I don't have much more to say about the Citadel stuff that I didn't say in the previous review. They're still absolutely excellent swords. I did another video where I talked about some of the comparisons between the Motohara, the Evolution blades, and the Citadel pieces that I had. I had 2 and 2 at the time. And there's not much more that I can really add. They're still absolutely excellent swords. They do a great job. If you like them, then, I mean, certainly highly recommend it. I didn't have an Ocean Katana that I really felt was representative of what you would buy if you were to get one new, though. The one that I had was really well worn as a secondhand sword. It had been sharpened. It had been used for EI a lot. And so it wasn't really something that I thought was appropriate to review, because every inch of it had been worn and used, and kind of it didn't look like a new one anymore. But it held up. So I guess that's also worth noting. It had been used a lot, sharpened a lot, and still was a very effective and excellent sword to play with. I sold that one off and I kept the bamboo. I don't use the bamboo so much. I just really like it. I like having an example of a Citadel sword, but I can't say that I use it very much. I've been pondering clearing some of the collection that I have. I'm just lazy, and the bamboo that I have is one that I'm a little bit loath to do it with. I think wire brush would definitely clean up some of the cheaper painted looking ones, but engraving is definitely a different ball game. Not easy. So engraving, I was talking a little bit about if you could engrave fittings, or if you could in some way enhance some of the fittings that are on there with a chisel or a Dremel or something like that. I think there might be a way to kind of punch into some of the corners and just crisp up some of the, especially moan shapes. The swirly Mitsudome, for example, if I took a chisel and just kind of pounded in some of the quarters and crisped up the shape, I don't know how well it would work. But I suspect there might be a way with a calm and steady hand, some sandpaper, some smaller chisels to enhance the beauty of some of the cheaper fittings that are out there. Any thoughts on using World War II Gunto? WWE? No. World War II Gunto, people regard them as very forgiving cutters because they're sturdy monosteel. They're not always monosteel, but sometimes they are. They are certainly. Others regard them as cheap junk. So it depends on what you study, right? So one of the arts that I study is Toyama Ryu, and it's a World War II based martial art. And so Gunto are, what the art was kind of founded to use a little bit. I don't necessarily see them as bad. There's other reasons to use them. They might tie to history a little bit more. They might this, that, or the other. I don't think they're a bad thing to use if you enjoy them. The mounts themselves aren't necessarily great to do EI with, especially if you have like the steel scabbard and stuff like that. But the blades themselves, if put in a different set of furniture, are generally a bit on the heavy side to do cutting and whatnot with. They're certainly forgiving, but they're closer to history as well. And generally speaking, they're not inexpensive, right? Because they're desirable to military collectors. They're desirable to people that want authentic swords and see Gunto as, a stepping stone or tied in some way to history. that are interested in collecting them, and then there's practitioners, right? So oftentimes they're like $800 to $1,200. Maybe my pricing is way off now. That's what they were last time I looked at them. And for that, I think you can get a much more compelling sword, which is going to be forgiving and better for practicing martial arts. So I don't think it's great, but if you find a good deal on one, then I wouldn't hesitate using it. I don't necessarily think they're bad. They have maybe some different lessons to teach, though. All right. Would you do a video series on one of your custom katana projects to show the steps? It's tough for me to do that. There's a wakizashi that's being done, and Josiah Boomershine has provided some of the polishing steps, but the Mystery Man in Black doesn't do video recording and stuff like that. So I don't do the work myself, which means I'm at the mercy of people who are willing to try to record themselves and comfortable being put on the internet. So I don't have the ability to do it start to finish. Also, I'm kind of hesitant to do that because I'm dumb when I do it, right? And I've shown some things that I do in terms of like general maintenance and quick fixes and stuff. But if I were to do a project, I haven't done enough of them, and like watching me stumble through it, it's hard enough to do it, let alone record it. So I'm not sure. At some point, if I feel confident that I have a useful argument or something to contribute, then I wouldn't hesitate to do it. I think it makes interesting content. I just would hate to put terrible information out there and have people stumble along when there's probably a lot smarter way to do it. I probably asked this question, but do you have any plans for ancient swords? Some cutting, not destruction, or both? I don't talk too much about antique pieces because I don't know a lot about them, and generally speaking, I'm pretty full up on trying to talk about the production stuff that I have, and I don't mind talking about the antiques that are in my collection and showing them. I just don't know a lot, right? It's tough for me to share, and it's very easy for me to promote misinformation and be dumb and not have something meaningful to contribute, when at the same time, given a limited amount of time, I can talk about a brand, a sword that you can actually go out and buy, and maybe give somebody perspective advice on buying that sword. But in the realm of antiques, buying them, what to look out for, I'm still pretty novice in that regard, and so I can talk some about it. But there's Nihonto message board, and there's all sorts of things out there that I think do a better job of educating you, frankly, than I could. So that's why I've been hesitant to do it. In terms of like ancient sword, like ancient world swords, I don't have a ton of access to them. The closest one I can think of, like if we use the actual ancient term, because I can't remember how many. Anyway, there's some artifacts and arms and armor that sometimes they'll let me play with from the ancient world, and I certainly can't do any destruction tests with them. I don't know how easy it would be actually to destroy it, because it's like a solid bronze sword that they have, and I don't think they let me go with it. But I also don't talk too much about ancient, depending on how you mean it. If you mean like antique swords, like some of the Nihonto pieces, or if you mean like reproductions of ancient world type swords. I lost my train of thought. Are you interested in Chinese Dao? There's a big variety. There is, and yes, I've reviewed a few of them. LK Chen and Jake Hu sent me a few of them, or Jake Ko. Anyway, I reviewed a few different Dao. I enjoy them, and I think they're really cool. I think this was to John. Craftsmen are not inspired by money at all the time, and forget about it. Hello, Hunter. Glad you could join. Has El Kitchen sent you any more swords? They have not. I don't know that they will. I'd certainly welcome playing with anything that they're willing to send me. So it's certainly, my door is still open. I still have the Heavenly Horse and the Chujen. I was going to break the Heavenly Horse, but I don't think there's much point in it. It's basically a bigger version of the Arsenal Dao, and it hurts to break. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'll be showing much. I could probably do a better job showing some of the other stuff with the Heavenly Horse. But at the moment, I think I've talked about as much as I can about the things that I have. I don't know that they're planning on sending anything else, though. And part of that, I think, is because I pushed a lot of them to failure. and I don't know that they appreciated that or not. Or that they're, anyway, I'm not sure that they plan on sending me anything else, but I hope they do at some point, and I would certainly welcome checking it out. I know they come out with a ton of different models, a bunch of different cool stuff, and I know they've also kind of branched out beyond just the Chinese style swords and have moved into other areas. I'd certainly be happy to check any of them out, but they have not sent anything to me. Did you see the nice looking customized bamboo mat secondhand market? I did not. Toss me a link. No, I didn't. You could try sandblasting the clean stuff. Harder cut medium, like maybe garnets would cut in the corners of a moan. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how I would go about it. Sandblasting the fittings is also tough. You have to kind of get something that you can work around the ito with, because you can take the fuchi and the suba off, but the kashra is usually stuck on there. And if you want it to look right, you have to be able to kind of work around that gently without screwing up the ito. Sukin, well wrapped. I always like looking at a good bamboo mat. Going to be getting myself a katana for Christmas. I have gift cards from Cutting Edge Cutlery, a local shop. They have Hanwei and Dragon King. What would you get if you were me? I'd get a bamboo mat. I'm a sucker for a few different swords. I really like the Mitsudome themes that they have. There's the Great Wave Katana and the Tsunami Katana as well. Or no, the Great Wave and Tsunami are the same thing. The Wind and Thunder has some Mitsudome fittings on it, and then the Tsunami or Great Wave Katana also does. I like the look of those things because I'm a sucker for them. I really like the bamboo mat as well, though the bamboo mat that you would probably get would be quite a bit different than the one I got. There's all sorts of different ones that have good fittings. I certainly advocate the Practical XL as well. If you're going to get into cutting stuff in the backyard like tatami mats, then that is an absolutely excellent cutter for the money. That it's tough to find a comparison that has like a really wide, nice blade on it like the Practical XL. Yes, we're talking about swords. Surprise! Ever thought of doing a video conference with Paul Martin? Yeah, I certainly would. He is a smart guy. For those of you that don't know, he runs a channel, The Japanese Sword, I think. Paul Martin's done all sorts of stuff and has forgotten more about Nihonto than I know. And for anyone that's looking for like advice on Nihonto, he's an asset to certainly be to watch his content, to learn from, to observe. And I think he has a hand in like connecting people to smiths and whatnot. So if you're looking to purchase one, he's a good guy to know. I haven't really thought about it as much as my channel is about Japanese swords. Certainly it's a point of focus. I do a lot with mass production stuff. And I don't know that our audiences cross as much, but what would you like me to talk about with Paul Martin? Paul Martin. What would be if you saw us talking together, apart from swords, like what kind of grains of knowledge would you hope would come out of that? Do you think it's dumb to make koshiri with modern Chinese fittings for an expensive Nihonto? No, I don't think it's dumb. It might be taboo to some, but if you have a set of fittings you like and you do something with your own property, I think that's fine. I do think it would be a shame to cut down or customize a really nice antique sword to fit Chinese fittings, but At the same time, if you're preserving the original sword and you're mounting it up with antique fittings or modern fittings because they're within your budget and it gives you a sword that's functional for you to display, I don't see any issue with it. It certainly is worth considering finding antique fittings, though. I know it's not as easy to do off the shelf, but eBay has a ton of stuff that's older, might blend a little bit more with an antique, and generally isn't much more expensive. The cheapest reproduction fittings, it'd certainly be more than that, but you can sometimes find antique Fuji, Kashira, Manuki for, on the low end, like $50 a fitting. And that isn't completely different than what you might find in the reproduction Chinese side of things. So I think there's a way to not blow your budget up and keep the antique theme if that's important to you. And so maybe that's worth considering. But to me personally, I don't know. Like if it's your sword, I don't really get, like, I might recommend doing something different, but like, it's your property. Do what you want to do with it, man. Do what makes you happy. Do what sits well with you and is in your budget and helps you enjoy it, right? Not just like, do whatever you want. I don't care. I don't mean that. I certainly have an opinion about like breaking old swords, but buy what you like and enjoy what you buy. And if owning an antique sword and putting it together with Chinese stuff makes you happy, then I don't poo-poo that. Do you recommend a certain progression in terms of price when buying a katana in order to appreciate the differences in quality? What I recommend first to anyone is to buy something cheap and then get the dumb out of your system, right? The cheap, whatever is cheap to you, spend that, right? So if you're a little bit, if your pockets are bursting, right, and you have $1,000 and that's chump change to you and it doesn't matter and you don't mind going and chipping your sword and breaking it in half, go buy $1,000 sword. That's fine. If you are modest and have more modest means, $50 is about the cheapest functional sword that I've seen from Musashi. I don't think they're $50. I think they're probably 60 or 70 now. But you can go out, buy that sword, swing it at rocks and stuff, get the silly out of your system, see what happens, and hopefully get some perspective more on what you like and what you don't like. I do think that that's worthwhile. I don't know that you need to start at one quality to appreciate it, but I would certainly recommend handling some swords and reading about them and getting a good idea of what you like, and try not to spend a bunch of money on something that you'll be disappointed in. Do you think the tension between the U.S. and China will affect swords in terms of? It certainly might affect shipping, and it certainly may have impacts on like duties and tariffs and things like that. Costs certainly could go up, but I don't think so. There's not like a huge domestic sword market that is being crushed by the Chinese import of Chinese swords. So I don't anticipate that would be a problem, and I don't think it's like any kind of strategic resource that China would be concerned about, right, in terms of selling to the U.S. or that. Yeah, I mean, it certainly could. I'm not an expert in the area, but I don't think there would be a huge order of magnitude and change. The biggest change I would anticipate would be pricing, and I could certainly see that if tariffs continue to rise and any product brought into the U.S. from China were impacted by it, or if we continue to see problems in shipping and delays and things like that, the cost to bring over things per container load, obviously that could impact, but mostly what I would see would be a change in price. It's going up. But at the same time, like every economy is hurting. So maybe that helps, and the dollar is still reasonably strong in comparison to some others. So as long as that's the case, you may continue to be able to buy a $50 cheap starter sword. Bonjour. Hello, hello. What is your favorite knife steel and sword steel? I don't really have one. I'm gonna, it's the cop out card here, but I genuinely don't have one. I like any kind of knife steel, any kind of sword steel. I like it to be done well. That's I suppose the caveat. I've seen, any steel that you have when not work properly can be bad. Some steels have the potential to be really good in certain categories. And I think it's all cool. I like the kind of magic of steel, the science behind it. I think that's fascinating, neat, but I don't really get jazzed up about the type of steel that something is made from. And the reason for that is when I go and do dumb things with it, they all act about the same, right? How they're heat treated makes a big difference. If one is through hardened versus differentially hardened, there's a pretty big divide in terms of where each of those excel. But they all chip, right? When I whack them into metal rods, when I throw them, when I do dumb things with them, they all break similarly, I guess I would say, right? None of them survive. If I'm being really brutal with them, they all get destroyed, and some of them might, have millimeters of different edge deformation, but all the edges get diminished, right? So where I get excited is if something lasts that torture test a little bit longer, and mostly that has to do with, is the steel they're working with heat treated effectively? I don't even know about like the best. I don't know if I've ever had one that's the best, but is it heat treated effectively? And so for that, like the Ronin Dojo Pro is a great example. It's about a $350 or $400 sword, and generally those take a lot of beating before they're broken. They're very durable swords. They're not super expensive. It's not a very exciting steel. By contrast, the L6 steel can be very exciting. I've seen Howard Clark blades made of L6 that have taken. I saw somebody swing and whack my concrete floor in my garage with a Howard Clark L6 blade, and there was a little bit of edge deformation, which was very surprising for the type of swing and how hard it hit the floor. But I also, an L6 sword from Hanwei, rolled on hitting the wood on my stand. So it can be a great steel when done properly, but I'm not excited by the steel itself. I'm excited if it's done properly, I guess. And I'd rather have a properly done 1045 katana than an improperly done L6 super steel katana. So I don't think that the steel itself really jazzes me up. And knives, I get more excited about the shape, I guess, and if the steel suits the use. For kitchen knives and stuff, I don't clean them quickly enough. So if they're carbon steel and they have a propensity to rust, it grosses me out while I'm cutting stuff, and the blade's all gnarly and rusty, and I feel like I'm going to taste it in my food. That bothers me, so I prefer something more corrosion resistant for a kitchen knife. For an outdoorsy knife, I'm certainly less bothered by it, and it just has to shape-wise be okay and do knife things reasonably well. But like, can I cut into a log 20 more times? Or I don't know. I don't think that the difference in durability really makes that big a difference in comparison to so many of the other things that make a knife or a sword enjoyable to use. It's important, but it's to me more important that it's done well. Otherwise, to ramble about it more, obviously folded steels and tamahagane and like things that are hard to do and have a tie to history, those can be really beautiful. I don't think that they're going to work better, but they certainly can be really beautiful and show how hard it is to make something well. And I certainly appreciate looking at those as well. I think those are really cool. I really like looking at folded steel stuff. Sword, like I'm a nerd about it, right? I spend a lot of time with swords. So if they're folded and complicated to make and show all sorts of character and skill, I get a boner for that. Where was I? Okay. Lehman, thanks for the super chat. I'm a big gun collector. I'm getting buggy-eyed. Do you enjoy shooting at all? Also, why can I not read right now? Eyes work. Do you enjoy shooting at all? Also, is it dumb to make a kosher out of new Chinese pieces? Sorry, I'm having trouble reading here. I'm not getting what you're throwing down here. Do you enjoy shooting at all? I do. I don't shoot as often as I used to. I'm gonna open a door here. Maybe I'm lacking air. Do I enjoy shooting? Yes, I certainly do. It's a very expensive hobby to have. So, and I go through it you go through ammo so quickly. It's an expensive thing to do. Not that cutting a tatami mat or something like that can't be really, really expensive, or anything like golf or whatever you might want to do. I don't do it very often though. So I do carry a pistol pretty often. I have a license to carry in the state that I live in. I carry a firearm quite a bit. So I go every few months to put a couple rounds downrange and maintain some level of proficiency with the thing that I carry. But it's really, generally speaking, it feels like a chore when I go and do it, and I feel like I need to do it, and not that I really enjoy it. Right? Like, it's fun to do, and I have fun while I'm doing it. But I think when I actually get around to going, it ends up just feeling a bit like a chore. It has been fun though. I certainly enjoy firearms. I know a lot less about them though, and I don't have a whole lot to add other than, yes, of course, they go bang, and it's neat when you when you're good at it, and when you aim and actually hit the target. For me, that's a fun kind of special thing. I always find it funny when I go and I go to the range for the first time, and I aim and I fire, like, and the improvement, and kind of like, oh yes, here's how you do it, and then actually being proficient with it is kind of a fun thing. Also, when I go to one of the ranges, there's a running man, so a plate that moves, across a moving target, a moving, steel ball that's about I think it's 25 yards downrange is where the running man is at the place that I go, and it's certainly fun to hit it. And if you get it consistently and you feel competent with it, I certainly enjoy that. I'm not sure if I answered your other question. Is it dumb to make kosher out of Chinese pieces? I think I answered that earlier. Maybe you asked me this and I'm taking a long time to get through chat. Sorry, I'm rubbing my eyes. I'm going a little blurry here. All right, next one. Eric said it's sold already. It's sold already. Ready, set, cause really sad. Cause oh man, I might have to stop my stream here. I'm having trouble reading stuff. Really fast, because the owner only said 275. Blah blah blah. All right. Well, I am going a little buggy here. I'm not able to see my computer stuff so well at the moment, so I might have to pause, because it's going to be really hard for me to stream if I can't read what people are saying. Well, all right, folks. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to hold off on the stream side of things. I can't read the stuff. I said that already. It's a very strange thing, but things are just blurry, and I'm having trouble reading what people are writing, and that makes it a bummer. I'm gonna sit out for a minute, and I'm very sorry because there's a ton of people asking me questions and stuff, and I'm very far behind in chat as is customary. So maybe my eyes will clear up in a minute, but I did before I go, because I don't need to read to say a few things. I can tell you a few of the thises and that's that are going on. I did get the what the heck is it? The Messer from Dark Sword Armory. They sent me I can't remember, it's like the Knockenbacher or something like that. It's a two-handed Messer, and then they sent me a shorter Messer as well as a dagger. And the larger Messers I still have to play with and figure out. They're a bit on the heavier side in comparison to the Lance Connect Emporium pieces or the other stuff that I've seen Messer wise. But they did send me this dagger, and somebody asked me what I thought about Dark Sword Armory daggers. So when they offered to send me a sword, I said, would you mind sending a dagger just so I can take a look at one? And I think they're pretty neat. I don't know if I'll do like a conventional kind of review, because I'm not sure what would somebody would want to see about a dagger. But I did think a couple things were interesting, and I thought I would note them while I could. One, they have the same kind of scabbard as the swords. So that was interesting. It's a wood scabbard with leather, and it's basically just a mini sword, as opposed to a dagger. A lot of times I see daggers and they have leather scabbards. This one is basically the same thing as the swords they make, and it has very similar everythings other than it's slightly smaller. The crossguard seems about the same. The kind of sharpness that's on the dagger is about the same as the sword. The fittings, the gap between the crossguard and the sword, all of the same stuff that you see. It's literally just a mini Dark Sword Armory sword. I thought that was actually kind of cool, and I happen to like it. I like the wooden scabbard. I think it looks neat, and they're not inexpensive for knives, but they're not super expensive either. And so if somebody was like, hey, what does a sword person want for Christmas? These are kind of neat. These are neat little daggery knives, because it's very much like a small sword. The Messers are heavier than the Lance Connect Emporium pieces. That was the first thing that I noticed, and mostly because I still have a sore. I can't see things well either, apparently, now, because I can't read the screens that are in front of me. But yes, what's Eric's? So I can't read, I can't see very well either. Apparently my elbow problems are extending to my eyeballs now. But yes, I got those things, and I thought the knife was neat. Somebody was asking me about it, and now I suppose you know. The other bits were the RVA Katana is here. John is here. I was playing earlier today with the S5 Katana from Not Visor. Can't remember things. My brain isn't working well either. Anyway, I was playing with the S5 Katana that John sent my way, and it did things well. I tried not to really super abuse it. I went out and did some basic cutting on water bottles. I cut a what did I cut? I cut a pool noodle. I don't think I had cut tatami with that one, but I cut a pool noodle, I cut water bottles, and then I took it to some branches that were frozen. So they were green at one point, and now they are frozen. So it's not a particularly fun thing. It's debatably abusive, I guess you might say. And I thought maybe there was a bend, so I had to bring out like a level just to see if it was bent or not, and it held up really well. And it was pretty and fun to use, and they are fun. So I will hopefully have some sort of review out for the Cloudhammer Steelworks. There we go. I will hopefully have some of that up in the not too distant future. And yeah, that was most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. I'm still having some trouble reading things though now. So if you have asked a question, I will try to answer you in the not too distant future. Eric, I do see that you said Cloud Hammer. That's good. I see you're trying to help me. If only my eyes were working like they're supposed to. Anyway, hopefully I'm not having a stroke. I should be fine. I don't smell toast, so it's okay. Anyway, folks, I'm sorry to cut off early. All of a sudden my eyes are not able to read the chat super well, and it's not my computer. I think I just maybe need to finish my beer and take a break. So I'm going to stop here. Apologies again. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for chatting. I feel really bad that I can't see what people are saying super well, but I will hop back on sometime in the not too distant future and hopefully get any questions that were asked before. I love that people jump in and contribute to the conversation and try to chat with me, and then I feel bad when I fall behind. I feel worse now because I just can't see what the hell's happening. Anyway, I'm going to stop here before it gets worse. Cheers, everyone.